Welcome to In Body, In Mind. Join us as we explore the world of alternative and complementary health, wellness and life experiences. This is part 2 interview with Greg Campbell, the author of Total Reset. We continue on with Greg's journey and wisdom handed down by Lulu, the wisdom keeper of the Gulaburu people of the West Kimberley.
Listeners, last week I had a conversation with my good friend Greg Campbell. He's the author of Total Reset, the book I'm holding here. And this book was published how long ago, Greg?
Last year.
Last year, so it's recent, it's hot off the press. You've had several book launches since then. I listened to a book launch you gave in Fremantle a few weeks ago. That seemed to go very well.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
And we're loving the book, and everybody we've spoken to who's come across the book is enjoying the material that you've presented here. It's obviously a lifetime of work, I think over 30 years of material that you've brought together. And every time I pick it up, I find something new. There's treasures in every chapter, and it covers so many different areas. So for anybody who's looking for any ideas about community and how we can, and leadership and the environment, spirituality, even quantum physics, ecosystems, new ways of going forward, all the conversations that need to be held at this time in history. And so this is a great book to sort of start that conversation, I think, and that's why we're here today. And it's still early days, but you're also going to be presenting at the Yelling Up Wellness Festival on the 19th of November. So that's something to keep in mind for all those listeners that live in the Southwest, the Yelling Up Wellness Festival. And you'll have a stall there, I think.
Yes, I will.
And I met you at the Dunsborough Markets. You had a stall at the Dunsborough Markets.
Yes.
Will you be continuing?
Yes, I will. I really enjoy that.
Right.
Yeah, meeting people.
Right.
And many different kinds of people. I was surprised who showed an interest in the book.
Great.
Yeah, you see people in their 60s and so on, and you think, they're not really interested anymore, No, not at all. No, a lot of switched on people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all ages, all types. Nice. Yeah, non-Indigenous, Indigenous. Yeah, no, wonderful. Yeah, I enjoy meeting people. Markets are great.
They are.
They're wonderful. Yeah, a proper form of capitalism.
And so you'll be there. You also have a webpage.
Yeah, that's totalreset.com.au.
Right.
So people can look at the book and purchase it if they wish on the website. It'll be on the global websites in September as a printed book, as an audio book, and as an e-book.
An audio book. Right.
Mark Cole-Smith, who was a Gold Logie nominee last week, is the narrator.
Yes.
He's a Nikina man from the Kimberley.
Yes. Where
this book, a lot of the book is located in the Kimberley.
Yes.
And he's probably the best in Australia at narration. Wonderful human being. The only one in the world who could do this audio book would be Mark.
Right.
Yeah, no one else has got what's needed in order to do it.
Incredible. Wow, that's going to open up the material and the knowledge to so many more people. Yeah,
a lot of people are time poor, you know, and sitting and commuting for an hour or more, certainly in the eastern states, if not in Perth, and to be able to listen to a book is much easier for them.
Excellent. Well, that's great. I love this artwork on the front.
That's beautiful.
What's the story behind that?
Well, that's my dear friend Frans. He's a Dutchman, now turning 80 this year, who the Aboriginal Gulaburu people took into their family at the beginning of the 1970s. Yes. The old man, Lulu, needed to have someone to interface between their world and the whitefellow world, as they called it. And he grabbed hold of Frans, who has the mindset of a proper bushman, and a deeply spiritual man, but a very practical man at the same time. very intelligent, very aware, very evolved, tough as nails, Dutch persona, you know. But he is a great artist, and
Yes.
I worked with him from day one on this book in 1991. The old man said to me, you know, I want you to stay with us and write one book.
Yes.
I said, well, that's a great honour. And I said, but I should have someone perhaps to edit and make sure I don't put anything down that shouldn't be there, you know, that transgresses the red lines. He said, well, you can use Franz for that purpose.
Right.
So from day one, Franz worked with us on this book. He doesn't have the English language skills that we have.
Right.
But he has very strong intuitive sensibilities.
Yes.
And when it came to the issue of a book cover, he said, yeah, I've been working on it for some time, and actually been working on it for a year, I think. And he did this big painting, and it turned out to be that very powerful, sacred symbol of the universe.
Yes.
With the serpent, the rainbow serpent wrapped around it.
Cosmic egg.
Yeah, very, very much so.
Right.
Exactly. Cosmic egg, Chiringa shape, Linga shape, you know, that very sacred shape. I have a feeling it might be the shape of the universe.
Right.
But there we are.
Right. And I loved our conversation last week. And we've had some really good feedback from that.
Wonderful.
So we got around to talking about your experiences in the West Kimberley with the Gurula people and with Lulu and your time you spent with him, that validated much of what you already experienced, and you know, intuitively and innately you were aligned with I guess what was to come next in your life, which was this powerful introduction to the Dreamtime stories and culture and wisdom and spirituality of the people of the West Kimberley. And then how did that then evolve in terms of, was it your intention to go up there and find something that could end up in a book or lead to some answers that you were looking for in terms of your life or in the direction? Or did that evolve from simply being there and meeting Lulu and the people?
Yeah. I when I went up there in 91, I had a very simple aspiration, and that is that I wanted to sit with a wise elder. I'd sat with a wise elder in India, and it had been a profoundly beneficial experience. And then the years had gone by, and I'd gone through the whole corporate thing, you know, to sort of the top of the echelon and all that stuff. But the deep spiritual values and feeling were still completely present. So it was like living in two worlds at the same time. And my desire was simply to sit with a wise elder for a few weeks. That's all I wanted.
Wow.
Yeah, there were no aspirations to do anything or create anything or become anything.
Right.
There was nothing missing in my life at all.
Yes.
I was perfectly contented.
Grateful.
Very grateful. Wonderful wife and children. You know, I mean, you know, a wonderful situation. I'm very fortunate, very blessed. I don't know if I deserved it.
Yes.
But that's how it was. So yeah, I just wanted to sit with an old man and enjoy that space where, you know, you sit there for hours and say nothing and you're just swimming in nectar.
Yes.
So, you know, it's hard to describe to people unless they've had the experience.
Yes.
But once you've had it, you say, well, given a choice between 5-star Tahiti holiday, sitting in the dirt with an old man, I know which way I'd go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so the book came because the old man said, we'd like you to work with me and my people to write one book. Well, I didn't know what the book was about.
No.
I wasn't a writer.
No.
I told that to Lulu.
Yes.
He laughed and he said, yeah, we'll be at the end of this, you know.
Why did Lulu think it was important? Obviously, you arrived at a time when, you know, he was ready to, in his life, to pass on.
Yeah. Well,
the knowledge to you.
He'd been born in 1912.
Right.
So he'd seen the whole unfolding, which was the collapse of their culture,
Yes.
not collapse, but near collapse
Yes.
of their culture, the genocides, the people taken in chains, marched for days in chains,
Locked up at Rottnest.
from the desert, into Broome initially, sent down to Rottnest and executed, some of them, for spearing cattle. All this horrible stuff he witnessed his whole life. And he saw people going down. He would say, people no longer true people, not got strong lian,
Yes.
getting weak that lian, all going the wrong way. And then the threats to country came in. So initially it was just the pastoralists and so on, graziers, but then the mining interest emerged through that period of his life. And by the time I arrived, there were some serious threats to the West Kimberley from oil and gas people, fracking people, uranium people, and so on, right? So he said to me, Kimberley laying here belly up. No one doing anything we've got to hold it.
Yes.
He like all traditional Aboriginal people, he was intimately connected with country as a living being.
Yes.
It's not just nature and how lovely it is and all that. It's actually family.
Yes.
So you got to look after your family. You've got to look after things.
The reverence, a sacredness.
Yeah. There's no sense of I'm a do-good. I'm going to save the environment. That's not.
No.
Not at all. This is much more real.
Yes.
For people like Lulu, very real. So he was looking for any way he could get people to see.
Yes.
He would often say that, at the end of a few days out on trail with tourists who'd gone on the Lurudari Heritage Trail walk, which they have up there a few times a year, sort of 9 days, nights camping with the Aboriginal people, walking the song cycle. At the end of that, he would often always ask me, can they see? He just wanted people to wake up and to be able to see clearly.
I think in your talk you gave at Fremantle, you talked about, he offered you, it was like new set of goggles, a new set of glasses. It's like if we wear a pair of glasses that is blue, then everything we see is blue, or green, everything's green. But it's like we open up our perception, and we sense then with a difference with different subtleties, I guess, that then emerge by being present.
Oh yeah.
That when we take the blinkers off.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. His instruction to me for this book was, well, Bubba, all you've got to do is give them some new spectacles.
Right. Okay.
We didn't talk about the themes of the book or the structure. None of that stuff. We didn't talk about the book in all those years with him. We just lived and walked country.
Yes.
And he told me stories and sang songs and showed me many things and explained many things. And he just assumed that whatever was going to work within the context of giving people new spectacles to look at the world, it would all be there.
Yes.
So I had to work like that, very creatively. There's no way you could work this one through the intellect as the dominant guiding principle of the structure of the book. I even the final weeks after 30 years, I was still amazed what was coming out. It was always fresh and coming out of that, coming through from that space all the time. I would often be sitting there, for example, writing some of the dialogue with Lulu. I'd be laughing. It was like he was sitting there talking with me, literally, and I'd be writing it down what he said, and then I'll answer, and then he would say it, and you could ask my daughter Jasmine. I would often be in hysterics. It's very delicious being with such people. It's inevitably, there's this great lightness of being.
Yes.
It's not it's serious, but it's not serious at all. Because the present reality of the eternal now, yes. You remember 3, 4, 5? We're living pretty well in the eternal now.
Yes.
So it's all just beautiful. Everything is beautiful.
It's coming into the present, the moment of creation.
So that feeling is the one that people yearn before. That the beautiful feeling of pure being, just beyond all sorts of stuff, just simply being. And you see a little child like that, you know, or you see an old man like that, or an old woman like that. How beautiful it is, how uplifting.
A definition that resonated with me once of beauty was that moment of appreciation of the absence of otherness.
It's great, great.
And
excellent.
Yeah, I mean,
excellent.
It doesn't matter whether it's a work of art or music or a flower, or this morning we were listening to the cockatoos in the banksia trees outside, and so I feel that to experience that, and it comes through in your book as well, is a part of the medicine or the healing that is required at an individual level. That's to be able to make that connection, take the time to make that connection, and to then see what comes out. So rather than, getting from the head into the body, into the heart, shifting into the heart, and from there there's a level of trust that we can hold. But it's not something that we can force or make happen either.
No.
So I like to, in my garden, I like to sort of exercise what I call my divine right to potter. And it's like, I don't have an agenda, I don't have a specific goal. Sometimes I'll sit down for an hour, and after an hour sitting down, just looking at a part of my garden, an idea emerges that I'll put a plant, I'll put a pot there, or I'll dig a hole here, or
well, when we sit with it, it speaks to us.
Yes.
Obviously not with physical voice.
Yes.
But yes, just like you described, we sit with something long enough, then we can start to hear.
Yes.
So we're moving beyond the individual ego self as the principal driver of life.
Yes.
So we're letting go of that and being with a much bigger self, which is the whole world.
And it doesn't have to be complicated.
No, it's not complicated.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
There's so many different ways we come about sort of trying to overlay that with some complexity, or with some structure, or with, and keep reminding ourselves that it's in hindsight, when I look back, someone could look back at my garden and say, "Oh, you planned all this from day one." I said, well, actually, none of it was planned.
That's right. That's right.
It's emerged out of my pottering dream time.
Well, nature doesn't plan its plantings.
No.
But there it is.
Yeah, exactly.
In all its glory. So there's other ways of being in relationship with life than those that we're conditioned to in our Western cultural upbringing. There are other ways, and there are ways that work much, much better, as we can plainly see now.
And in Total Reset, there's particularly towards the back end of the book, there's a lot of initiatives that you've outlined for integrating this view, I guess, into leadership, into community, into economy, but it starts with that this inspiration that we're talking about now. So perhaps you could take a few moments to introduce some of those initiatives. I particularly like the initiatives of going out into country, going out and participating in some of these walks. But there are many more that you've outlined as well, from a community level to
okay. Well,
the she's, which is another concept I haven't come across before.
Yeah, those all the different initiatives posited in part 3.
How positive.
Of Total Reset are there because I put on the spectacles that are effectively part 1 and part 2 of the book. So at the end of part 2, I've now got those spectacles on and I'm looking at the world today and out into the future and the way things are going. And with those spectacles, I could see all sorts of possible initiatives to start to head us in the right direction, humanity, in the right direction. And that was just this one fella.
Yes.
So I figure whoever gets to the end of part 2 and puts on those spectacles will be able to they will find new solutions that they haven't seen before. And some of those will be very, very important solutions. So, for example, in part 3, we look at the concept of autonomous holistic societies, AHRs. And what is posited there is that every Aboriginal society, they're called nations now, but they weren't really nations. They didn't have centralised control, hierarchical. They weren't like that at all. But every Aboriginal society was autonomous. So we had over 500 of them in Australia.
Yes.
Over 250 language groups, 600 dialects, more than 500. They were each autonomous with their boundaries, with their laws, with their customs, language, and different from all the other mobs around Australia. As different as us from Czechoslovakians or from South Peruvians or whatever. Okay, so in Australia there were never wars of conquest and control, ever, never. There were clan disputes and all the usual argy-bargy goes on with humans, but there were never any concept you would go and take someone else's land, imprison the people, enslave them, whatever. So they were autonomous. How did they manage to avoid wars of conquest? Well, their autonomy was founded or grounded on the dreaming. It was grounded on a non-material aspect of reality. If you take the non-material aspect of reality out of the equation, all you're left with is the material reality and the logical mind, the intellect, right? Now, that's what we've been running with more or less for about 5,000 years.
And the end game of that, an AI ran global society
AI,
orchestrated
exactly.
out of Brussels or somewhere.
Exactly. So they didn't go down that path.
No.
They realised that if there's countries to be looked after, then it's the people who live in each place that need to look after it.
Yes.
The people who live there are the ones who really know it and understand it, right? So their structure was not to establish one Australia with 500 sort of mini nations. There was to have, there's no central Australia. There's this great land and there's 500 societies who are managing it and managing it superbly, according to the accounts of Edmund O'Reilly, 1788. So that's all laid out in part 2 of the book. With those spectacles, looking at the world now, you think, okay, well, part of their blueprint for living was local level, place-based autonomy. Right down at the local level, not centralised governance. No. You can have a fantastically powerful mob of 500 societies moving together, but you don't need centralised governance for it. What you need is the existing governance, which is in the non-material domain. All the laws of physics, all the way this world works, is all following a blueprint. It's not just an accident that this exists. And not an accident that the sun rises and sets and the moon does this and all that. It's a magnificent, beautiful creation designed for endurance, for continuance. And so the Aboriginal people were very aware that their principal responsibility as human being on earth was to look after the balance of all life so that there was continuance for all. So it's a deeply respectful ethos, to say the least. So concept of autonomous holistic regions. We have in Australia 89 bioregions and I think 413 or thereabouts sub-regions. So if we really cared about Australia's future, we would understand immediately that each of those 89 bioregions needs to be self-governing. How better would you look after Australia than the people who live in a bioregion looking after that ecosystem?
And the people in
It's
that
so common sense.
system.
And what did we do? We said, okay, well, British colonial bureaucrats in London can draw lines on a map. So there's WA, there's South Australia, Northern Territory, there's Queensland, you know, and there's a bit with the River of Queensland, New South. You know, it was just no consequential reference to the context of that division. But the context is always the natural world. And if we don't look after it first and foremost, well, we're hurting ourselves, let alone whatever else. So the concept of autonomous holistic regions, but it goes much further. To have a community that's place-based is a wonderful concept, but you also need people who are connected in community. So the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people did that in a very simple way. They extended kinship beyond the bloodline.
Yes.
So your father's brothers are all your fathers. Your mother's sisters are all your mothers. So all their children are your brothers and sisters. So you finish up, if it's a place-based community in a bioregion, everyone's connected. Now, when everyone's connected as family and we understand our rights and responsibilities that go hand in hand with that, which is how it was set up, then we have a great capacity to move together as one mob at the same time as being different one from another, because every individual is an autonomous being. This autonomy thing goes right down to the level of the individual. When I met those Aboriginal people, what struck me first and foremost was the dignity, the sense of self-worth, of dignity, of respect that was there, and it was very real and very strong. I'm thinking of people like JR, who features like JR, very much like that. If you want to know, for men at least, if you want to know what a man is, then meet someone like that and you will see what it means to be a man. Man who is tremendously strong and powerful and beautifully compassionate and loving. You know, it's not that misogynistic, you know, male sort of warrior forever and a day trip. Lulu was a very strong man, to say the least, but he was so loving and kind-hearted. So these were qualities that I observed, and I thought, well, they're not qualities by accident. This is a part of the culture. This has to do with how they're raised. Complete freedom in the first 7 years. You, in the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander world, you do not slam a child under 7 years of age for anything, verbally, physically, or in any other way. That child is sacred, and you let them run free, and they run free. And they sometimes drive the parents crazy, but the parents don't lift a finger, you know. And then between 7 and puberty, peer conditioning, the usual thing, the other kids, the older kids teaching you the rules of the game in relation to social relationships. And then when you hit puberty or thereabouts, traditionally, that was where something really important happened. And it's, I believe, the principal reason we have serious mental health issues in the Western, well, in the world. That is the failure to initiate. In their case, they did not fail, and still,
and adulthood.
Yeah, into
the transition.
Yeah, a lot more than adulthood.
Yeah.
So if you are 11, 12, 13, 14, you're ready to become an adult or be trained to become an adult, and their initiation process for the men took often 8, 10 years or more. A man had no right to marry until he was fully initiated, because you did not know how to carry yourself properly, and young men can be wild, and they understood that very well. So how do we rein that in and make it a productive wildness rather than an unproductive one? Well, we've got to teach people their rights and responsibilities. You do not become an adult in our society without understanding your rights and responsibilities as a father, a brother, a niece, a cousin, a nephew, and all those things. And then in certain life events, various, you have all these various responsibilities. So that was taught through the initiation process. And that's great. But most important, how do you make people free within themselves to function according to their full capacity as a human being? Well, that's not possible unless you know the full reality. Now, we know the physical reality. When we're born, we know it all, and then we lose it, and in this one, and then at that puberty initiation time, they're reintroduced to the sacred by not ideology, not you've got to read all these things. Not a literate society anyway. We've got to know all these things. No, by direct experience of it. You can't replace it. There's no other way to replace the direct experience of the other reality, what people call spiritual reality, than direct experience. And there is probably no more reliable way to have the direct experience that so many seek than coming into relationship with country. Country meaning with a capital C, all elements of the natural world and the non-material world, the full thing. So coming into relationship with country means learning or knowing how to access its power and intelligence. It's obviously extremely powerful and intelligent. So, okay, fine. And we're part of country. We're not separate from it.
So we're extremely powerful.
No, we're just one of many species in
innate.
country. That's all.
Yes.
You know. So we're right there. But how do we? So initiation processes are set up all over the world, whether it's in Indigenous Australia, South America, Central America, Mongolia,
Yes.
you know, everywhere, set up the same. So that two things happen at initiation time, which took some years often. Much less for women, by the way, because Aboriginal people regarded women as inherently sacred, nowhere near as wild or crazy as men. So they didn't need to have the severe stuff that often the men had to go through. End result the same. People living with great dignity because they're autonomous beings, knowing themselves as sacred and knowing that they actually are just inhabiting a body for a short period of time, whether it was 20 years or 100 years, a short period of time, you're inhabiting this body, you're a sacred being. So the direct experience of that is what happened initiation time. And we miss it and look at the mental health and suicide.
Well, that's right. I mean, there is a bit of a wake-up call in some of the material you present, because there is this massive disconnect in society which leads to the health issues.
It's avoidable.
It's avoidable. And by what you're talking about here, talking about this community connection to land and each other and to autonomy and to responsibility, I guess, responsibility for this area, because centralisation and more centralisation has never been the answer. And so what we're talking about is
it's contrary to the natural way. It's contrary to the natural way.
And all the attempts to centralise power has failed throughout history.
It can only in the end result in the destruction of the human race.
Yes,
it's an obsession of certain people.
Yes.
And it is extremely unhealthy, psychotic type of illness, to be honest.
Yeah,
when you lack faith in others, then the desire to control.
I mean, tapping into that genius, tapping into that intelligence that you talked about, that's all around us, and we know that if there are more answers and more solutions available to us when we connect, and so we may not know through all the analysis. I mean, whenever we do an analysis, we should put the analysis down for a moment and say, look, even though I haven't, even though I've done this analysis, I'm open to the possibility that there may be some answers outside of that analysis.
That's right.
And just because I haven't discovered them there doesn't mean they don't exist.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when you make that recognition that it doesn't matter if you don't know all the answers, but it doesn't mean they don't exist.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where we're at when it comes to...
all the answers exist right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
they all exist.
You're confirming
not accessible through here necessarily.
No.
Here is a good agent for interpreting those things as they come through from that other space. Yeah. So one of the things that the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people are doing all the time is working with that other reality on a daily basis in a most natural way. They don't have to go to church to pray or anything like that, because their church is the whole natural world. Working with that reality means your intuitive awareness is vibrating at a very high level. So people, the Aboriginal people I know, are naturally very intuitively aware. To an extraordinary degree from a non-Indigenous perspective, from their point of view, completely natural, normal. Yeah, and that awareness is because being connected to the whole country with the big C,
yes,
that whole intelligence, then it flowing into you, coming in as energy, as feeling as energy, and that's where the well-trained mind is able to then put the right interpretation on it and not twist it. So the mind that doesn't have agendas, that's not messed around with ideologies and so on, can then bring it out in its clear form.
And you're also recommending that this is where the new leadership's going to come from as well. From I mean, looking around the world, can you point to any leaders that you think are leading from that? I mean,
I know there's one.
Yes.
But I don't know who it is.
I come across the Prime Minister of Uttar Pradesh, and he's a yogi, he's a monk, and he seems to be very popular, but not because he's a popularist, but because he is drawing on his monastic, background and to influence his leadership. But I don't know a lot about it.
Bhutan has been doing well.
Right.
They developed the alternative to gross national product as a measure of well-being, gross national happiness.
Yes. I like that one.
People first laughed, silly little thing, but not silly at all, because of measuring GNP might be nice for the to work out how much more money you need to print, but the well-being of a country, you need to look at all aspects, not just the economy. And there actually moves afoot globally at the moment to introduce new measures of prosperity.
Yeah, so where we live in a beautiful part of the world down here in the southwest, and a very special part of the world, on Wodandi Budja country. And I often, talk to folk here about, what levels of responsibility for the things that we care for, can we sort of take more involvement in, take more care of? These are some of the little things that, and I think they flow into what you're suggesting in your book as well, whether it's AIDS care or youth suicide or youth crime or food production, the health of people, and the decisions that impact us with regard to being, whether it's power, water, food supply, health. I mean, these are all the big ones, and education. I mean, how much more of that can we get involved with and be a part of, rather than contracting it out to a centralised bureaucratic department that may not know what the specific requirements are of this part of the world, that are unique to this part of the world, with the aliveness that's here. I mean, right now we've got the whales coming back up the coast. I know there was a few spotted last week. The first wildflowers are coming out. I mean, there is so much here that's part of what we believe is beautiful and special about it, and while most of us love living here. So it's taking the time, I guess, to be able to incorporate that into a way of life.
Well, I think the broad objective for everyone should be to look at the moves that can be made to increase the autonomy of the region. Regional autonomy is very important. Bring it as close as possible to the local level. Now, the starting point in terms of the reality of today's world, where global logistic chains are tenuous and dependent on all sorts of factors, any one of which can flip the whole situation in an instant, then you start with fresh water. Fresh water is the primary requirement for all life. So, do we have control over our fresh water? What's happening to our fresh water? Are there toxins going into our fresh water? We don't want that at all happening on our land, in our regional home. No, not at all. We want fresh water for a whole range of reasons. How are we collecting it? Or are we actually just dependent on a state government or federal government system for that? So water is one thing to look at, and then obviously food. How do we become self-sufficient in food if the global logistics chain goes down and there's no trucks bringing stuff in from the cities or whatever, no planes, no ships, there's no fuel, there's no petrol, there's no diesel. I mean, all these things are predictable, only the time frame. So how do we become self-sufficient in food? So, just the initial effort to focus on one area, water, for example, food, means a whole process of collaboration and getting things to happen and change is set up. And then you can start to look at the social issues of community relationships, education, aged care, and so on and so forth. And the models of a local community for education and aged care, for example, and health, may be completely different to those that exist in Australia right now. People can see other better ways of taking care of most issues, radically different perhaps. Like no way in the world does anyone finish up in an old person's home. Doesn't happen. Love, love. I mean, how could that be? I mean, I know people are forced to that because of economic circumstances. If both husband and wife are working, for example, how can they look after the old one? They can't, but they have to. So this is an insidious situation. It's like people have been deprived of their right to love and to live with joy.
And dignity.
And very much in dignity, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now there's a lot of conversations that your book's going to promote, and I want to help stimulate those conversations. I know you are having more talks, and I think you're heading up to Broome soon as well. I think you're going to be quite busy, Greg, and I think I can see other folk like myself who are going to want to meet with you, but I'm also hoping, as you are, and I'm hoping to be a part of it as well, to be part of some of these initiatives.
Well, you are.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying that with the small community that we have here, that we share the common sort of outlook.
So you've been doing very good work from what I hear.
Yeah.
And I think it was COVID might have galvanised a lot of activity down here. Was it?
COVID did bring a lot of folk together, like-minded folk together, and it came together in a really positive way. And I've got to say that the outcome of folk coming together was to have the conversations we're having now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which was a really beautiful thing to come out of it.
Isn't it?
It was, hang on, something's crumbling, something's falling apart, right, in a big way. But let's use our energy, let's use our creativeness, let's use our genius, our innate abilities to build on the vision, really.
Yes. They're the two ways of going when adversity strikes. You either become creative or become the opposite, destructive. Just cave in to whatever, or no.
At the beginning of this talk, Greg, I was attempting to follow on from our first conversation, which finished with you talking about the songlines. Well, we've had such a wonderful conversation over the last half an hour or so, and I've just realised that we finished in that area, and but we haven't spoken about it today. So maybe you could bring that.
Love to.
Topic back for the listeners.
The concept of songline, or as Lulu called it, song cycle. The older women call it song spirals, is really important. It's to do with the non-material fabric of reality, therefore difficult for people to get their, well, not for all people, but for some people to get their heads around. Basically, at the beginning, there's nothing, and then there's movement, there's vibration, there's resonance. Resonance makes sound. So the beginning of everything, from that point of view, is sound. So everything created has its natural sound. That's its resonance. So the creation of this Earth, the solar system, this universe, is resonance vibrating, if you like, in waves or along in waves. It's vibrating waves. And it's like the entire universe is a network of vibration, of patterns, in chaos theory, or in fractal theory, the fractal patterns everywhere.
Holographic.
Yeah. And so Australia is a physical landmass, etc., but it wouldn't exist unless that vibration was happening all the time. So that energetic vibration becomes and appears to be solid physical reality. So it becomes the natural world.
Which is what
it's vibrating in a non-material level.
And everything is energy.
And it's becoming that, so to speak. It's actually popping into and out of existence every instant. Nothing is as it seems. We have our senses which tell us it's a certain way. Eyes, ears, and so on.
On off.
Oh yeah, but we don't see at all what's going on. No, I mean, an eagle can see, humans can't see. Dog can smell, humans can't smell, and so it goes. So we have this very healthy resonance happening, if like a girdling the entire planet, and then the planet's holding its physical form. So the pathways that those resonances travel, if you like, are the song lines or the song cycles. So in Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander mythology, created beings, non-physical beings, emerged from the nothingness, or the ocean or the sky, whatever you want to put a label on, and sung all this into existence. So the Gulabaloo people do an 80-kilometre walk along the coastal strip from Broome going north towards One Arm Point. It's a section of the song cycle that they've looked after for quite a long time now. And that song cycle, that is the land, that domain, was created by a created being. You could say actually it is being created by a created being all the time. It's not like there were created beings and they created it and now they're not here. No. This is an ongoing thing that's happening all the time. So people go and walk the song cycle with the Aboriginal people, 9 days and 9 nights. And at the end of that 9 days and 9 nights, something has happened inside each and every one. Now, the power of country is, as I mentioned earlier in this interview, awesome. It's beyond anything the mind can imagine. In my view, it is the great guru, the great teacher, the great mother, the great father, the great guide. It is absolutely trustworthy and reliable. It does not lie or deceive. It is real, very real. So if we become one with it, we become equally real and equally powerful. And so on.
And its truth becomes our truth.
And it doesn't require study in a schoolroom. It doesn't require any of that stuff. It requires all the opposite. It requires us not to try to be.
So
Just be.
how does somebody or a listener, if they are interested in this walk from Broome north?
Oh, look, in that regard, people can just Google Lurujari, L-U-R-U, Luru, Jari, J-A-R-R-I, Lurujari Heritage Trail, or Gularabaloo, G-O-O-L-O-O, Gularabaloo, and up will come information about that.
It's twice
They're
a year.
really booked out, I think. Yeah, twice a year.
I'm sure they would be.
2 or 3 times a year. Now, but there will be other mobs in Australia. I'm sure there would be 2 or 3 others doing something like this. I know the Nagina people who look after the Fitzroy River catchment, the Motowara, are going to initiate a walking of the song cycle. We have tens of thousands of kilometres of these very powerful sacred pathways, which are life transforming in their potential. And none of them are World Heritage listed at all. Now we have in Spain and France the famous Camino, there's a Christian pilgrim's traditional trail. We have the trail to Machu Picchu in Peru, and so on, all World Heritage listed. But the place that has the original pathways or songlines, tens of thousands of kilometres of them, it's just sitting there like it's nothing. It's nothing. It's not only a fantastic resource for personal transformation of individuals or groups, but a phenomenal and boundless economic resource. I mean, the songlines of Australia have the capacity to wake up the entire world. That's how important they are. But there's no strong movements afoot to really address what are solutions. We have referendums, yes, no, should there be a voice, shouldn't be a voice, da-da-da-da-da. Well, that's all well and good at the top. But what we want are real solutions now, on the ground, today.
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah. So, Aboriginal people who are holding that knowledge, time to invite everyone to join in and walk together.
Yes.
That was the old man's message over and over again. We will not succeed in moving forward and sustain all life unless we all walk together. So we've got to put aside our prejudices, which are on both sides of the fence. We have to ask very much for forgiveness for what our ancestors did and for what's still happening in this country, and make every effort to join together, put aside differences and work for the common good, not just of all humans, but of all life, because so much of this life is now being hammered by human activity and it has no voice in what's happening. We need to be the voice of the trees and the animals, the rocks and the rivers. Yeah.
Well, that's inspiring and a very positive and powerful note to finish on today, Greg. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation again. So this is the end of the second part of our interview.
Well,
and I'm sure there'll be more.
I enjoyed it very much, and you know why? Because we love each other.
We do.
We hope you've enjoyed part 2 of Greg's journey. We look forward to your company in our next podcast, In Body, In Mind.